Hey, this is the Dirty Mechanics Section 5 bumper tutorial video. We will be showing you how to sew all those bumper covers.
In profile, the shape of our bumpers, they have generally a flat section and then an angle. This flat section has been measured and it is a total of 3.5 inches across. And once again, we're going to be using our center point marking as an important point because we're going to assume the center point of the bumper is here and we're going to draw in our seam prior to sewing. Okay, in this step we're marking our seam to join our panels together. As the point of the Velcro is the end of the wood. So what we've done, we've drawn in pencil a line square to the edges which goes from the end point to the end point. And then the 2.5 inches that we measured as the thickness of the foam becomes this dimension here. So we've drawn in another pencil line, also square, measured with our square, straight down here. And this becomes part of our marking. So in order to measure, we've taken our square, lined it up along our doubled over edge seam and made sure that it is square and drawn in our pencil line. That pencil line is 2.5 inches from this point to this point. Then, because the vertical distance of the foam in our profile is 3.5 inches, we have drawn in a straight line for our seam which is 3.5 inches long. That's this dimension here. We've drawn that in permanent marker so that it's easy to see when we're sewing, because remember we're going to be sewing over this with stitches and it's going to be totally covered and won't be visible also because it's on the inside. So we have drawn 3.5 inch vertical line centered on the centering mark, and then we've drawn an angle from the outside corner of our Velcro and joined that line. And again, this is our stitch seam here on the top and here on the bottom. So this is our stitch seam. And now remember, we're joining two panels together. We are sewing the seam, and so the panels have to be finished side to finished side, because after you've sewn through them, then you're going to trim around the stitching and then turn it right side out so that you wind up with a pocketed seam. Okay, we have marked one of our seam lines here. We're going to mark the other one right here. Keeping in mind that our Velcro comes right to the end of our wood backer. So we're going to draw a line across the assembly right at the end of the Velcros. Our measurement line, we're going to go the 2.5 inches out from that along the center line. We've got our 2.5 inches marked right here. We have our 2.5 inches. Again, using our T-square. And then we measured the height of the outside edge of the bumper at 3.5 inches. So we're going to do 3.5 inches centered on our centering mark. So we have our marks on our ruler. Three and a half inches. Again, drawing with permanent marker because this is going to be sewn over and will also be on the inside, so will not be seen. Now we're going to draw our diagonals from the outer corner of our Velcro to the center of our seam. And these lines will be where we're going to stitch. When we're stitching, we're going to concentrate on this area in here, because this is the doubled over area of our outer edge, and this is where the majority of the stress is going to be, this area and in here. But we're going to concentrate here because we've got doubled material on both sides to support lots of heavy stitching. Okay, now this is marked one panel. Now we're going to place our other panel face to face and then pin it in place so that we can stitch through both pieces with our seam. And then once it's stitched properly, then we'll cut along the edge, the outer edge, outside the stitching, leaving enough material so that it will be secure, so that we can then fold it the correct way out. Okay, now we've got our panel, it's marked. We're going to join two panels together. This is panel B, as you can see from the marking, and this is the up dimension. This one here is panel A and up dimension. And so we're going to join this side to this side of these panels. You have to be careful that you're joining the correct sides, because once these are rotated, it will be section A, then section B, C, etc. Okay. Now to join these sections together, we've only marked the seam line on one panel, and we are going to line them up, and we're going to use the ends of the Velcro as our alignment marks, because remember, the Velcro goes over to the exact end of the wood, and this corner and this corner will be exactly together. The seam will be sewn at roughly a 45-degree angle here, and that way the finished product will work out the way you want. So we've got the pieces aligned, we've got the end of the Velcro to the end of the Velcro, and we are going to pin them in place so that the fabric can't shift while you're sewing. I'm going to put my pin near our sewn line so any holes won't be visible. And then we're going to do the same on the bottom side. Just adjust it a little bit, make sure that the fabrics are flat and flat. Use our pins and pin the two fabrics together. We want our pins to be far enough from our seam stitch line that they're not interfering. We're going to put in a third and fourth pin on this side just to make sure all the orientation stays the same, so that the panels can't move one against the other. Okay, this is now ready for sewing. We're going to do straight stitches. We're going to probably do 5 or 6 passes in this area and 2 or 3 passes in this area. Okay, here we're at our sewing machine. We've got our 2 panels which are pinned together, and we have our seam line drawn in on the fabric. So now we're going to do our stitching. Turn our fabric around so we can stitch back the other way in the forward direction. Trim our thread tails. Try to lay our second set of stitches exactly on top of the first set. Okay, here we have a very nice looking and strong seam. Extra tension in these areas to add additional strength, and our stitches are good. Now we're going to come and trim along this outer edge about an eighth to a quarter of an inch off the stitch line, so you leave enough fabric that the stitches are well secured. Okay, here's our stitch seam, and we're now going to trim the edges. I'm going to go, as I say, about a quarter inch in from the stitching, leaving enough fabric that the stitching is well secured. There we go. Now we can take our pins out and turn the fabric correct way out, finish side out. And here we have our seamed pocket, and that becomes our corner for our bumper. And it should, with a little tension, with the pressure inside from the foam, have a very nice finished look and be very, very strong. Here is our other colored cover, and this one is completed. And you can see the pockets are formed, including the ends. Here I've put a couple of bunny ear type tags to make it easier to assemble, and you can see that the seams come together nicely in each of the locations. All of our pockets look good. And this has been placed on the bumpers a couple of times and fits very snugly.